This morning we're going to be looking at two passages. The first is found in Matthew chapter 25, beginning in verse 31. And the second, if you want to place a marker there, is in James chapter 2. Today we're beginning a series called It's Time. We've all used that phrase, haven't we? It's time. Have you ever noticed how much urgency is expressed in that phrase? When you say it's time, it's like it feels like we've got to go, we've got to move, we've got to do something now. Parents will sometimes say this to their kids. It's time to get up. The third or fourth time it becomes, it's time to get up. Sometimes kids will say this to their parents even. Parents, have you ever heard, come on, it's time to open presents? But I think the most prominent and probably the most forceful of the uses of that phrase is when we say, it's time to go. I've noticed that when moms and dads and husbands and wives use that phrase, it seems like they're not often trying to give you new information. You ever noticed that? You'll be rushing around, doing everything you can to get ready so you can get out the door, and someone who's supposed to love you will stand in the middle of the house and yell, it's time to go! And you're like, well, yeah, thanks. I didn't realize you wanted to leave right now. It's time. When our leadership team got together and we were discussing changing our service time and how to communicate that best, we knew that we wanted to have a theme to communicate it, but I wanted it to be more than just a theme about a time change. I wanted it to be sort of a campaign, something where we could come together and rally behind it, and it would motivate people to action, motivate people to do something. We landed on the phrase, it's time. I believe it was Christina who came up with the idea because she's not only talented, she's also creative and smart. But we realized that to just say it's time without telling people for what it was time would leave some people with a sense of anxiety. We were afraid people would be sitting at home saying, it's time for what? What is it time for? So we wanted to take it even further than just saying it's time. And we thought about a lot of different ideas. We thought about, how about it's time for change? You know, it's the new year. Everybody understands it's time for change. It's time to stop eating so much and to get back to the gym. It's time to read my Bible more. You know what? Maybe this year will be the year that I actually read the Bible all the way through. So we thought about it's time for change. We thought about it's time for something new. Thought about a lot of things. I think my favorite was it's time for church. It's time for church because it has two meanings. The first one would be next week when someone's sitting at home and is getting close to what time? 10:10. They could stand in the middle of the house and yell, it's time for church. But also as a reminder to everyone that it's time to be the church. It's time to be what the church is meant to be. It's time for church. But then we realized that if we were to put that out on Facebook, that people who weren't part of our church family, if they saw that, they might not realize what it means. They may not realize that we're changing our service times or that we're trying to motivate people to be different. And some of them might not even know what church is or what church means. What does that word even mean? Is church a building? Is church a gathering for an event? Is church a group of people? What does it mean when we say it's time for church? So we decided to be more specific and more focused. We decided to spend a few weeks reminding everyone what it means when we say it's time for church. And at CenterPoint Church, it means it's time to serve, it's time to reach, and it's time to grow. Today we're going to talk about it's time to serve. Now some of you are like, well, Pastor Brian, it seems like you've already preached on serving. You've already told us we're supposed to serve. You bet I have. And you're probably going to hear it at least once a year for the next as long as you let me be here. Because when we say it's time for church, we mean it's time to serve. What does the word serve mean? You know, the dictionary defines it as performing duties or services for another person or organization. In other words, doing something for someone else. That's an okay definition, I guess. But I think for us it means more than that. Let's look at the Word of God and see if we can explain it. We're first looking at Matthew chapter 25. We're going to begin in verse 31. And today I'm reading from the God's Word translation. Jesus is talking and he says, "When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all his angels are with him, he will sit on his glorious throne." Who's excited about that day? Now come on, who's excited about that day? Man, I'm excited about that day. It says the people of every nation will be gathered in front of him. Man, that's going to be fun. Gathered in front of the Lord, just looking at him in all of his glory. Angels all around us. Lots of excitement. I hate crowds, but that's one crowd I'm ready to be a part of. Then he says he will separate them as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He'll put the sheep on his right, but the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, my Father has blessed you. Inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the creation of the world." Man, that's going to be an exciting thing to hear. Then he says, "I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you took me into your home. I needed clothes, and you gave me something to wear. I was sick, and you took care of me. I was in prison, and you visited me." Verse 37, "Then the people who have God's approval will reply to him, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or see you thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you as a stranger and take you into our homes, or see you in need of clothes and give you something to wear? When did we see you sick or in prison and visit you?' The king will answer them, 'I can guarantee this truth. Whatever you did for one of my brothers or sisters, no matter how unimportant they seemed, you did for me.' Then it says, the king will say to those on his left, 'Get away from me. God has cursed you. Go into everlasting fire that was prepared for the devil and his angels. I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger, and you didn't take me into your homes. I needed clothes, and you didn't give me anything to wear. I was sick and in prison, and you didn't take care of me.' They too will ask, 'Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or as a stranger or in need of clothes or sick or in prison and didn't help you?' He will answer them, 'I guarantee you this truth. Whatever you failed to do for one of my brothers or sisters, no matter how unimportant they seemed, you failed to do for me.' And then verse 46 says, 'These people will go away into eternal punishment, but those with God's approval will go into eternal life.'" Well, that took a dark turn, didn't it? Let me explain what's happening here. Jesus has entered Jerusalem. He's spending his last week alive in Jerusalem. They're getting ready to celebrate the Passover. It's a week that we refer to as the Passion Week. And Jesus is in the temple sitting down teaching. This is the setting where we get the parable of the wedding feast, and we get Jesus' answer to the question of what is the greatest commandment. It's also the setting that has the foretelling of the destruction of the temple and Christ's glorious return. And then it has the parable of the talents, and then Jesus drops this bombshell. He says when the world ends, he's going to sit on his throne and he's going to separate all of the people into two groups. And to one group, he's going to turn and he's going to say, come on into heaven, the place that we've been preparing since the beginning of time. He goes on to say that he's going to tell those people, I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you took me into your home. I needed clothes and you gave me something to wear. I was sick and you took care of me. I was in prison and you visited me. He tells us that those people with God's approval who he just told to go on into heaven will say, but Lord, when? I don't remember that. When did we do that for you? I don't remember doing that. These people aren't very smart, by the way. If I'm standing in the line, Jesus is like, come on into heaven. I don't care if it's a mistake. I'm going. I'm going to run as fast as I can before they figure it out. He tells us that his answer is going to be that whatever you did for those around you, no matter how unimportant they seemed, you did it for me. Then it says Jesus is going to turn to the other group and say, get out of my sight. Go to hell. Literally. Literally, it says he's going to tell them that God has cursed them and that they have to go into the everlasting fire that was prepared for the devil and the demons. But then he tells them why. He says, because I was hungry, thirsty, a stranger, needing clothes, sick, or in prison, and you did nothing. Says they too are going to respond by saying, Lord, when? When did we see this? When did we see you in need, God, and not help you? Jesus, you know if I would have seen you hungry, I would have given you part of my hamburger. Jesus, you know if I would have seen you needing somewhere to stay, I would have let you sleep on the couch. When did we do that, God? Says Jesus will respond by saying, whatever you failed to do for those around you, you failed to do for me. And then the story closes out with the statement that these people will go away into eternal punishment, but those with God's approval will go into eternal life. Now, wait a minute. That doesn't make any sense, does it? You telling me I got to do good stuff to get into heaven? That doesn't make sense. Is this saying that the people who helped other people got to go to heaven and the people who didn't have to go to hell? That's not how I remember it. I went to Vacation Bible School when I was a kid. I remember Vacation Bible School very clearly. I remember we played games. I remember we ate snacks. I remember we sang songs. I remember we made crafts. I remember we got to watch a puppet show and a skit. And then I remember that they told me that the Bible said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whosoever believed in him would not perish but have eternal life. I remember at VBS that they told me all I had to do was believe Jesus in my heart and confess him with my mouth, and I got in. Right? Now they're adding rules. That's not fair. That's not fair at all. Now you're telling me that I've got to feed the hungry, provide clothing and shelter to the needy, and visit people who are sick or in prison. I think that's what they call a bait and switch. It could seem that way, right? Let's look at our other passage and see if it clarifies things at all. James chapter 2. We're going to look at verses 14 through 22. James 2:14 through 22 says, my brothers and sisters, what good does it do if someone claims to have faith but doesn't do any good things? Can this kind of faith save him? Suppose a believer, whether a man or a woman, needs clothes or food. And one of you tells that person, God be with you. Stay warm and make sure you get enough to eat. If you don't provide for that person's physical needs, what good does it do? In the same way, faith by itself is dead if it doesn't cause you to do any good things. Another person might say, you have faith, but I do good things. Show me your faith apart from the good things you do. I will show you my faith by the good things I do. You believe that there is one God. That's fine. The demons also believe that, and they tremble with fear. Verse 20, he says, you fool. Do you have to be shown that faith which does nothing is useless? Didn't our ancestor Abraham receive God's approval as a result of what he did when he offered his son Isaac as a sacrifice on the altar? Verse 22, you see that Abraham's faith and what he did worked together. His faith was shown to be genuine by what he did. You ever seen the old movie Cool Hand Luke? There's a quote in that film that I think applies here. Very famous quote, and it says, what we've got here is a failure to communicate. What we've got here is a failure to communicate. Because you see, what we've got here is two of the most misunderstood and misused passages in the Bible. So many times, well-meaning ministers have opened the scriptures and read these and told people that you've got to do good things to get into heaven, and if you don't do good things, you won't get into heaven. That getting into heaven is something you earn. And honestly, it would be easy to come by that. It'd be easy to say that. I mean, Jesus told those who had done good deeds to come into heaven, and those who hadn't, he sent to hell. And then James writes, faith by itself is dead if it doesn't cause you to do any good things. If I can, let me try to take a minute or two and just clear up this misunderstanding. And those of you who are already there, you know the answer. Just wait for us. We'll catch up. Does anyone remember the Greek word dikaiosune? Anybody? Dikaiosune. It's a word that we talked about a while back in a series called New Digs that was about the armor of God. Dikaiosune is the word that Paul uses to refer to one of the pieces of armor. Does anybody remember which one? It was the breastplate of righteousness. The breastplate of dikaiosune. Righteousness. It's a word that means the condition of being acceptable to God. The condition of being acceptable to God. And in that message, in the New Dig series, we learned that another way to translate that word is what? God's approval. God's approval. Dikaiosune. Now in Matthew 25, when Jesus is telling this story about separating the sheep from the goats, he wraps that story up by saying, these people, the goats, will go away into eternal punishment, but those with God's approval will go into eternal life. Those with dikaiosune will go into eternal life. So how do we get God's approval? Is it by doing good things? Because those are the people that got to go to heaven were the ones who did good things, right? 2 Corinthians 5:21 says that God had Christ, who was sinless, take our sin so that we might receive God's approval through him. so that we might receive dikaiosune through him. See, we receive God's approval through accepting Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior. That never changed. Even in the story that Jesus is talking about God's approval, that never changed. Even in the passage that James wrote telling us that we need to do good things, that never changed. But it kind of takes us back to the beginning, right? If that's how we get God's approval, then what is all this business about good deeds? And why is Jesus making such a fuss about it? Why is James making such a fuss about it? Let's look at what James said about Abraham. He said, you see that Abraham's faith, the thing that we accept God's righteousness by, Abraham's faith and what he did worked together. His faith was shown to be genuine by what he did. You see, James, I don't know if you caught this earlier when James said, faith is dead, and then he talked about works. He didn't say faith is dead unless it's accompanied by works. He didn't say that. He didn't say you have to put the two together. He said faith is dead unless it causes you to do good things. You see, the misunderstanding that we have with these passages that causes so much confusion and so much debate and so much argument is a simple misunderstanding of cause and effect. See, some people read these passages and they think that what it's saying is the cause is doing good things and the effect is God's approval. They're saying if you do good things, then you will earn God's approval. But that's not what it says. It says the cause, having God's approval, will have an effect of doing good things. When you are a Christian, when you are saved, when you allow Jesus to get inside you and change who you are, it will make you do good things. It will make you love people, even the ones you don't like. Did you know you can love someone and not like them at the same time? When you're saved, you can. I love a lot of people that I do not like. And I would do good things for them. Because I love them and I know that God loves them. And His love is growing inside of me. Jesus even told us in John 13, this is how they will know you are my disciples, that you love one another. Church, I got to tell you, I kind of feel like we should have chosen a different word instead of serve. We should have said, it's time to love. Because that's really what we mean when we say it's time to serve. It's time to love. It's time to show God's love. Can I tell you something? When Christina and I felt the Lord leading us to plant a church in Lowell, I remember very specifically that we felt impressed upon that it was to be a church that was outreach focused. A church that its focus was outside the walls of the church. Its focus was serving the community, loving people outside. And at the time, I really thought that was something different. I remember I even told God, I said, God, I don't know how to pastor an outreach-focused church. I've never been in a church. I don't know how to do that. Church, I realize something now. All He was asking us to do was what He wants every believer to do. It's not something different. It's not something special. It's what every church should be doing. Our mission here is to serve our community, to love people, and lead them to Christ. And I'll tell you, we do a pretty good job of that. In the 15 months that we've been a church, we have served our community by serving meals to the homeless people down in Fayetteville and by providing gifts for those who didn't have them. We've bought treats and taken them to the firefighters and the police when they had to work on holidays, and we're actively serving all the time at Tucker Elementary. We've got people in and out of that school I don't even know when they're there. We've served at Mudtown Days, and we've served at Fall Fest, and we've served at the Easter egg hunt, and we've done a lot of stuff. But in 2019 and in the coming years, I want to see us do so much more. I want to see our church come together more frequently as an entire church body and do things for the community. Events. Once a month, once every year. I want us going out and doing work for the community. I want each and every one of our life groups to adopt a ministry that they do every month. All of our life groups. And if you're part of 4 life groups, then you get to go do 4 different outreaches every month. That'd be awesome for you. I would love that for you. But when we kick life groups off again here in a couple of months, we're going to sit down with all the leaders, and we're going to have a meeting, and we're going to let them know, look, every month you're going to do an outreach. I don't care if it's knitting caps for the new babies at the hospital, or if it's going and picking up trash one Saturday a month all over the city, or what it is. I don't care, but we're going to do it. We're going to serve. We're going to show God's love to our community. And I want each and every one of us to have a new excitement and a new dedication to showing God's love on a daily basis in our lives. I want to hear stories about each and every one of you buying people's groceries, or buying their gas, or helping them push their broken down car out of the road, or whatever. Doing things that I would never even think about because it's not me, it's you. It's time to serve. It's time for church. It's time for the church to be the church. Let me tell you something. You could sit here and you could hear this message, and you could decide that nothing's going to change. You're not going to do anything for anyone. And you may still get into heaven. But based on what Jesus said and what James said, if that's your attitude, you might need to have a look inside. You might need to look and see if you've got a problem of the heart, and maybe you don't have God's approval. Because if you do, it's going to drive you to love people. And listen, I'm not telling you to be foolish about it. I'm not telling you that when you drive out of here and you see somebody standing on a street corner with a sign that you give $20 to every one of them, because by the time you get from here to McDonald's, you'll be broke. Because they're on every corner. And let me tell you something. I could go right now into the kitchen, grab a piece of cardboard, and I could make a sign that says, homeless vet, anything helps. And I could stand on a street corner and it wouldn't make it true. And I'm not saying that every person who does that is lying or every person who does that is wrong, but there are several who are. So I'm not telling you to be foolish. I'm not telling you to let your heartstrings lead you around to make stupid decisions. I'm not telling you to not be able to buy your own family groceries because you gave it to the guy that's on a street corner so his kid can play traveling baseball. That's not what I'm telling you. If you want to help people, there's good ways to help people. If you want to help the people on the side of the road, go to Walmart, and I promise you, I could take you in there, and for $15, we could put together a little gift packet that a true homeless person would be thrilled to get. And then you drive around, keep it in your car all the time, and then when the Holy Spirit says to you, hey, give that to them, you give it to them, and it's got a blanket, and it's got socks, and it's got soap, and toothpaste, and toothbrush, and hand warmers. Or if you want to help those people, find an organization that's already doing that. Go down to Seven Hills Homeless Shelter and volunteer your time. Go down to Life Source where they are putting together groceries for people every single week. Go down there and volunteer in that ministry. There are good ways to get involved without being foolish. For that matter, when we take up the offering, take a check and write missions on it. And I promise you it'll go to help people. I'm not asking you to be foolish, but I am asking you to love. I'm asking you to serve. And here's how we're going to wrap things up today. I'm going to put you on the spot. What you're going to do today is one of two things. One of three things, I guess. In just a minute, I'm going to ask anyone who will commit to making this a focus for 2019 of serving other people. I'm going to ask every one of those to stand to your feet. And then I'm going to pray. So you get to do one of three things. You can either stand up and mean that, and it'll be awesome and we'll have a blast. You can stand up and be lying, and that's between you and God. Or you can sit there and say, no, I think I'm good. So let's do it right now. If you'll commit to doing this, I want you to stand up right now. And don't be looking around. You don't need to be looking around. This is between you and God. Now let's pray. Father God, thank you so much for your love. God, you loved us so much, your Bible says, that you sent Jesus to die for us. Man, there is no greater love than that. Lord, I pray that you will let that love permeate every fiber of our being. Lord, that you will let your love flow out of us. God, I pray that when people see us, they're going to look at us and say, I don't know why, but I like that guy. I don't know why, but I like that woman. Lord, I pray that you will give us creative and innovative ideas of how we can serve our community, how we can love people and show them your love. And God, I pray that love, when we show it, is going to open up the door for us to share the gospel with them. And Lord, if not with them, because I don't want us to have ulterior motives, God, but I pray that for every person that we serve and that we love, that you will open up a door maybe with another person for us to share the gospel. Lord, I pray that you will inspire us and set us into motion. And Lord, I pray for the impact that your love is going to have in this community. I praise you and I thank you. In Jesus' name.